Welcome back to my channel, Be Masculine Asterisk, There's something different about the way a man speaks when he's live through enough. The season's off life, his words carry more weight, not because he's there. It's louder, but because they're earned. Most men when they think off compliments. They think off charm. They reach for the obvious. You look great, a nice smile. Like your dress, it's not memorable. It's not memorable either. Women, especially mature women, are not moved by flattery. What reaches them is something deeper. Kind of noticing that feels rare. Chets. Safa, I remember a friend off man, 74 years old, widowed, gentle soul, once said to a woman at the post office, "There's some thinkstity in your voice. Reminds me of foam." She didn't answer at first. Shagist looked at him, quiet, surprised. Then she smiled. A small, grateful smile. See, it wasn't about buying smooth. It wasn't about trying to goat anything. It was about seeing her clearly. When a woman feels seen, not judge it, not evaluated, but truly seen, something powerful happens. This video isn't about being clever. It's not about learning lines. It's about how to speak with presence. It's how to offer the kind off compliment that only a man with depth can give. Because at our age, we don't chase attention. We offer presence. And when we do that right, when we speak from a place of lived experience, women just listen, they remember. So let's talk about how to do that. Not louder, not faster, just more real. Reality number one, why we mature. Men have an advantage. So let's begin with something most men overlook. But it might just be your greatest advantage. You see, younger men often try to hard theory in a rush. Tobe noticed. But with age comes stillness and stillness and stillness when paired with attention. Beckons magnetic older men. Men like you carry three quiet gifts that most women long for, but rarely name out loud. The first is calm presence. You don't panic at silence. You didn't need to fill the space that, in itself, makes a woman feel safe. This ice life experience. You've seen heartbreak. You've seen joy. You've seen what lasts and what fades. That wisdom leaves in your tone, your timing, your gaze. It lets a woman know you're not here to perform. You're here to understand, Andy. Third, you have nothing to prove. That changes everything because when you speak, there's no manipulation, no Gandano, desperate reach for approval. Just an honest man speaking plainly. Asp psychologist Dr. John Gottman once said, when a woman feels emotionally safe, she pawns up in ways most men never jet toy, or in simpler terms, when a woman feels truly seen, not just looked at, she remembers, is that man sometimes, for a ment, sometimes for a lifetime. So if you've ever wondered whether a Geech Makusu invisible, let me tell you the truth it only makes you invisible tohos who didn't know how to look but toa woman woes lived her own. Journey emotionally intelligent man who noticed cedar deeply is unforgettable. Now that you understand the why, let's talk about the how. Reality number two, hat makes a compliment magnetic, so talked about why mature men have you an edge. Now let's look at what turns a simple compliment into something gun for glazed. Not just the words, it's the energy behind them. When a woman receives a compliment that's specific, her brain actually releases the same chemical that lights up when Simone feels joy, connection, orbing, truly appreciated. But here's that key. The compliment has to come with no strings attached, no hidden intent, nausea and expectation, just recognition. What makes it feel safe? And a woman feels safe. Her guard drops her heart. Listen, let me give you 3 types off compliments that women, especially mature women, quietly crave. These aren't a butho. She looks there about who she is. First compliment. Hair in her strength. You always speak with clarity. It makes people pay attention. Even when you whisper, it tells her, I see the power in your words, not just your voice. Second compliment. Hair. Emotional impact. You make the room feel lighter when you walk in. It's like people breathe easier around you. Tell sure you bring something Tathers Don single quotes to 30, not just there today. You become graceful with years that takes real strength. No Devirian ages with such presence. It'ls her I respect broad you've walked on. Just how you show up. Now notice a known of these air flashy. None of them are exaggerated, grounded, specific, and spoken from a place of calm appreciation. Compare that with what most men say. You'll look nice today. You're beautiful. You've got great eyes. These might sound polite, but they're forgettable. Well, they didn't land because they sound like some a dozen other men might say, but when you say something that when notice a mething rooted in observation and character, that's when our eyes soften. That's when she pauses. That's when connection begins, because deep down every woman wants to know, did you see me or did you just glance? Coming up next, I'll show you when to speak these words, because even the best compliment said at the wrong moment can fall. Flattery. Number 3. When to compliment now that when what kind of compliments true larage a woman. Let's talk about something just as important when to say them, because adaming isn't just a Buddha opportunity, it's about respect. And when it comes to mature women, the wrong meant can turn of in the most thoughtful words into amistep. Most men don't get this part right. They compliment too soon or too fun or worse when she's not emotionally open to receive it. Hair sack with truth. Compliment should never be used to fix, impress, or distract its hold. Come like a gentle recognition. Something real. Something felt. So, when is this right moment? Let me offer you 3 moments when a sincere compliment carries real power. First, when Cheshire's something personal. Maybe she's telling you about a challenge she'll face, or how she got through a difficult chapter in life. That's not the time to say you're strong. That's the time to look at her and say you carried that with more grace than most people ever cowed. In that, you're not commenting on, you're honoring her courage. Second, she does something thoughtful that most people miss. Maybe she refills your coffee before you ask. Maybe she listens without interrupting. Maybe she remembers sire. Sisters? Name, that's when you say way you pay attention. It's subtle, but it makes people feel cared for. That kind of compliment shows that you notice what others overlook. Third one, she's not expecting it. Compliments are most powerful when they're not sandwich. At a gender, not at the start, OFA date, not as a reward. Not because you're trying to get something in return. But when it's quiet, when it's calm, that's when you simply see carry yours will flag. Someone who's made peace with whooshes that's rare, and then you let it land. No need touches, a reaction. Air swat, I've learned. Don't compliment when needs convenient template. When your heart sees something true, because women can feel the difference. And it are a sincerities, louder than style. Coming up next, I'll share 2 real stories. When that created deep connection and when that made a woman quietly pull away. It's not just about what you saboot, how it feels when she hears it. Reality * number 4, what works. And what fail? Sometimes it's not theory. We need its proof. Let me share with you 2 simple stories. One created quiet connection. The other left the woman feeling unseen, even a little disappointed. The first is about L76, a widow who volunteers twice a week at the local library. He's not the Kindoff man who speaks just Tafel. One afternoon, he met a woman who was there with her grandson. She had that calm, nurturing presence, the kind you'll feel more than notice as she was packing up the book. Simply said, "It's clear, he's safe with you." That kind of steadiness, it's rare. She didn't rush to respond. She looked at them for amament, soft, surprised, and smiled, like Simeon, who'd just been seen for the first time in a long while. They ended up talking for another 20-minute test. Next week, she brought him a cup after Ewan. She saw him again. No games, no performance, just recognition. Earl didn't compliment her appearance. He complimented her impact, and that medal difference. Now, let's talk about Dennis. 68, retired. Still carries the charm. Used to rely on back in his 30s at a community potluck. He met a woman, new tough neighborhood, elegant, thoughtful, clearly someone who listened more. Theek talked about music familiar, the cities they'd lived in, and out of nowhere, Dennis leaned in and said, "You've got a body that doesn't messiah. Age at all, that dress." Wow, her smile tightened. She said she needed to help with the dishes and didn't return to the table. See, Dennis thought he was being complimentary, bold even, but what gave her wasn't a gift. It was a spotlight she didn't ask for instead. After seeing the woman in front of him, Herodotic her to her figure. While Hamida had gotten a different response 30 years ago, the kind of compliment now feels out of place. Even invasive, there's a big difference between Kazinga. Reaction and creating a moment amateur woman doesn't want to be flattered shoo-ins too. Be recognized. And when, either a compliment that touch her strength, her impact, her quiet resilience, you don't just impress her, you stay with her long after the words say are gone. In the next part, we'll look at how app psychologist teaches men to give. Second, a compliment that doesn't just sound good but actually heals something inside her. Stay with me. Reality number 5, compliment like app psychologist techniques that heal no flattery, compliment. Needs to impress means poking with care can actually bring a woman closer to herself. They didn't flatter her ego, they soothe her heart. That's what psychologists call emotional validation, since that's a man sees not just what you do, but what it costs you to keep showing up. There's a type-off compliment called a validation compliment. You're not just saying she's strong. You're honoring the struggle that made her strong. For example, after Cheshire's something defect, you might say, that couldn't they've been easy to go through? And yet hero are still smiling. That's resilience. You're not fixing anything. You're not trying to her up. You're simply holding space for her truth. And that to a mature woman is powerful. Another approach is what therapists call a narrative compliment. This is when you reflect back something men fungal from her own story. Let's say she talks about she cared for her mother during the last years of her life. You might say the way you took care of her that speaks illums about your heart. It's not poetry. It's presence, and the beauty-ish knows you listening. These kinds of compliments don't just make her feel appreciated, they help her feel understood. And for a woman who's lived through decades of being reduced to her looks, her age, or her usefulness, that kind of recognition is rare. The key here is sincerity without a gender. You're not saying these things to win her, or very you're saying them. Because they're truant, because they deserve, Tobe said as Dr. Helen. Fisher once wrote, a confidence without agenda is the most magnetic quality. That's the kind of confidence a man's through time. It's through heartbreak, THRO, finally understanding. That connectionist about cleverness. So ask yourself, when was the last time you offered a compliment that reflected her values? Not just here at Fit, that spoke to her soul, not her surface. Next, we're going to look at the mistakes that undo everything. Fukuman phrases that many men think air harmless, but actually create distances instead of closeness. Reality number 6, what not to mistakes men make Salma times. Through words we mean to be kind are the variants that create a distance. And it's not because we mean harm. It's because weird. How certain phrases can sound in ears of a woman. Walls lived long in O2. See-through charm. Let me be clear. These aren't offensive phrases there. It's just careless, unaware. When spoken, they often leave a woman feeling, might even when you meant. Oh, well. Take this one, you're about a fool for your age. It sounds like a compliment, but what she hears is you redoing surprisingly well for someone whose hold be fading. It puts age at the center of her worth, and to a woman who's worked it hard to become more than her appearance, that feels diminishing another one. You remind me of my ex-wife, even if you say it with warmth at plaque inside, a comparison she's no longer herself. She's a shadow of someone else's thit kind of statement. Doesn't build connection, it builds caution. Then there's this, you look good for a random, it might be meant as playful boon that says, I didn't expect much and you surprised me. That kind off-becun tetters doesn't land with grace. It lands with tension. Here's what these mistakes have in common. They point to her age, not her essence. They carry assumptions, and worst of all, they feel like performance rather than presence. Women, especially mature women, have hardy version of being pretty, for the still attractive, at that they're not waiting for someone to notice their surface. They're hoping for someone to not their substance. So before you speak, ask yourself, is this complimenting who she is, or is it really about how you see yourself? Because the truth is how you compliment a woman says just as much about you as it does about her. And that brings us to something Moses men never consider a complimentos, just reflect her value. It trivels your tractor. Let's talk about that next. Reality number 7. And the compliment, thatch reflects you. A good compliment doesn't just describe her, it reveals you. Shows what kind of man you are, how you pay attention, and what to value when no one's looking. It's something many men forget. They think the goal is to mock a harsh smile, but a deeper woman, an experienced, emotionally grounded woman is also listening for something else. What does this man see when he looks at man? What does that say about him? When you compliment her grace, her resilience, or the way she carries herself through difficult moments, you're not just anger. You're showing her that unitus the invisible things you're telling her without needing. To explain that, you see people in more than just surface terms. That tells her everything he and's heard a man say to a woman. You walk like someone who's lost. Battles but didn't lose herself. He didn't say idled. Poetic. He meant it. She didn't answer right away. Just nodded quietly. That moment stayed with both of them. Not because it was clever, but because it weighed through. Man who speaks like that reveals, if not technique because it's way you compliment someone, is air flexion off hut. You value. If unitus herkiness, it tells her your respect compassion. If you admire her steins, it means you understand restraint. And if you recognize the bodhi and how she listens, how she carries her age, how shadows try to impress, that tells here you're the kind-off man who's not chasing noise but peace. So ask yourself this when you speak. Are you reaching for attention, or are you offering presence? Because in the end, it's not about how many words you use. It's about whether those words show her that you've spent a time. It's learning how to see people, not just watch the man, that kind off compliment that stays with her reality. Number 8. The silent power of buying seen at our age. It's no longer about chasing love or proving anything of it own. Enough of that. What Crave now quietly, honestly, is Tobe met with presence to speak and be heard to. Offer something genuine and have it land where it matters. The right compliment doesn't shout it, doesn't show off. Simply let someone know see. And that's more powerful than charm, more lasting than beauty. Because when a woman feels truly seen, not evaluated, not admired from a distance, but seen, something in her softens. Schnellinger feels like she has to defend, perform, or impress. Simply gets Tobe, and that's the space where real connection begins. So remember this. Your words carry more weight than you thinks because you've memorized the right phrases, but because you've lived long enough to mean them when you speak with sincerity. With stillness behind your eyes and no agenda behind your smile, women listen differently, not with their ears, but with their hearts. You don't need to flatter. You don't need to press. You simply need to notice Anzi, the quiet thing that only a learned how to listen can say. Start there at on night. Maybe you'll compliment someone on how they look, but on who they are when no one's watching. And if you do watch with a pans, sometimes the smile struck in Sean is the one that changes everything. Thank you for buying Herette if you've made it this far. I am no way you're not just looking for tips. You're looking for truth. And maybe like many of you're ready to show up in a way that feels more honest, more present, and more respectful to Thekand. A woman who's earned her strength over time. I hope something in this video gave you pause, a sentence, a moment, an idea that made you think differently about how we speak and it matters if it did. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share one compliment you've ever received that stayed with you. Vesta one sentence, one moment of buying scene because your story might help another man find his voice again. And if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, tap the bell so we can continue making content that speaks to men like you. Men who still believe that connection, respect, and emotional intelligence never go out off style. We'll see you in the next video on Until Then Speak Gently and Mean What.